Hey family, I am Sharif Iman.
I'm Jenna Barbosa.
This is Love Speak Revolution.
Love meets you where you're at.
Yes, it does.
It does. So glad to be back with you guys. This is just such a fun time. We love chilling with you guys.
Yeah.
Really, our mission with this podcast is to revolutionize the idea that you've got to have it all together to experience Jesus' love. Whether you're a believer or not, love will still meet you where you are.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's so good. Well,
We are talking about
family. We are family. Yeah.
what is it? All that. I'm so bad when it comes to remembering.
I got all my sisters and me.
So great. Oh, we need a little humor. Family is always tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can love our family, but still have a hard time with family.
Mm-hmm.
Period. End of show. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. And we're done.
And we're done.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think it just it differs. It depends. But in conversations, it's like both of us have know that like my family was, yeah, it was definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it's I think that the conversation, I feel like anytime we bring up family, every single person has both sides of the table, right? I don't think that I really truly do not believe, or I really truly believe that not one person can say, oh, I have a perfect family, no problems at all.
Yeah.
Like there's just that doesn't exist. And you can have a very good family, but still have problems and still have things that came from that family because of humanity, because of just the fall of sin, of just the fact that you are coexisting with multiple people under one household when you are
Right.
so different,
Mm-hmm.
right? Different personalities,
Yeah.
different, like you bring your own baggage with you when you're a mom and dad, and then you have children, and having children and having your new nuclear family doesn't erase the baggage that comes from your family of origin.
Right. Right.
And so there's a lot that goes with family, for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, family for me is not blood. The extension of family, and being raised, I was raised universally. Like there's tons of different cultures that we were spending time with, and I was in the home, and so it was very universal. But like immediate family, like there wasn't like connection, there wasn't closeness. I mean, I had like short seasons of like closeness, I guess, but it wasn't like this well knit. Where I did see a lot of families had that. But within the last parts of many years, God healed a relationship with my father, and he was just like my best friend. And before he passed, so God definitely healed that relationship, and I can say that he was the one thing in my family that I really locked in with. I had like a relationship with my mom proxy my dad. And so now it's like having that now is, my dad was the one I always went to. My mom was, I don't want it to seem like cold by just saying she was there.
Right.
We had a little bit of a connection, and we would talk, so like very rarely we would talk, and I cared for her, and I still do. She's still with us. But as far as like I don't know if I want to say stereotypical, like, I mean, I know that people have families that like they they have siblings and, have a relationship with their siblings, or it might be a little rocky. Like, I do not talk to my siblings. Like, and it's hard. It's hard, but I'm always going to be real talk with you guys. It's like, I have no desire to speak with my siblings just because of the treatment, how they treat me, and with the total lack of disrespect and just hatred towards me. And so I'm still working on that. I still pray for them and their salvation, but that's a really challenging road for me to be on. So family, like, we'd always talk about these words that make you cringe. And family is one of those words that kind of makes me cringe, because it's like, I feel like I had to grow up very, very young. I mean, I feel like I was an adult at like 4 and 5. I had to like grow up disconnected, really, not seen, not heard. A lot of discipline, a lot of expectation, a lot of shame, a lot of condemnation, follow the rules, like all of these things. So that's what like family was. But God, that's what, when I say family is outside of blood, for me, I have a lot of people that aren't blood and universally that are my family, that have treated me with respect. There's several families that consider me like a son. But I will say, like, my aunt, my dad's sister, very close with her, and my mom's sister and her kids, her 2 kids, Rahim and Nia, that is on blood side I consider, of course, family. They've always been good to me, and they've always treated me like family and loved me, and so I do have that in a sense. But that immediate like brothers and mother, it was just not there. So how about you?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know it's tough to go there, but I think it's so powerful though, Sharif, because so many of you guys I know have similar stories to Sharif's. And I love that we are on kind of 2 opposite ends of the spectrum with family, because there's a mix of people out there who have both, and I think that it's so necessary because, and I know I work a lot with clients who are struggling with their blood family so badly with toxicity, and they're so afraid to separate themselves from it because they're family.
Yeah.
And the fear is that, well, what's on the other side? If I don't have my mom, if I don't have my brother, if I don't have my sister, if I don't have my dad, then what?
Right.
Like, what is there, And I think that it's so massive to see that on the other side of that, those boundaries of protection out of wisdom, God has given you family plus, and you are thriving. Whereas if you were still in the trenches trying to just make it work with your blood family, I don't think you'd be sitting here with me.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that that's so massive for people to see that, and I'm not just condoning like throw in the towel and like leave your family, but just, without like counsel and understanding, like, okay, there are some very clear reasons that I don't need to be going around my family or talking to my family. Like there is still goodness on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And so I love that you can bring that perspective into it, because so many people are not going to relate with my family.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that aren't going to relate with your family.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of having just the variety of listeners, followers, and then, watchers, and then us as well. Because mine was very, very different. Mine was definitely, we are a very tight-knit family. Growing up, I would say it was tight-knit to a fault. Where I really, it was a good family. I felt loved in my family. And we had some good times, and we were always there. I always knew. And even to this day, I know I can go back. You know, I went through a transition of stepping out of my job into entrepreneurship. And I know we're going to talk about that in another episode. But during that time, I was able to move back in with my parents for a minute to kind of have a security net in case things kind of came crashing down.
Yeah.
But that was a beautiful thing for me to be able to know, even as an adult woman, I have that security net of my family there, that I know that they're there. But to that though, because that was always there so prevalently, it was to a fault of my development, because I didn't really develop a sense of my own identity as Jenna until honestly, like the last probably 5-6 years. I've really been walking through that, like, who the heck am I outside of the Barbosa bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that I lovingly call the Barbosa bubble. But, you know, I have solid, good people who are my blood family, powerful people, but also human people. And I'm one of those human people. And so in our humanity, we've clashed along the years and have caused fallout and hurt with each other. And, you know, I've been hurt by them and I have caused much hurt to them. And so I think it's hard when you look at that, of those are the ones that we develop the blueprint with for our development, and the way that we attach to other people in the world, the way that we process things, right? How many times do we encounter something and we process it through what we experience with our family? Growing up, you know, well, oh yeah, we have a point of reference to when we were growing up, and who we were growing up with was those blood family people, or people who had non-blood family members that were either adopted, but just that family of origin is what we're talking about, right? And so a lot of that, I think, is where I think the importance of, when we're looking at family and in this conversation, is that sense of identity that gets developed because of the family that we grow up with, and with the family that we grow up with. And I think that is the hard part of adulthood, is learning to say what identity was formed.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I need to shift that identity? Because what part of that identity is not helping me anymore?
Yeah.
Or maybe never helped me? And what part of identity do I need to learn about who I am, identity in Christ, and identity just as me, myself? Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Who God created me to be, uniquely, intimately, and perfectly, in the sense of not perfect human, but perfectly me. God made us perfectly us, right?
Yeah.
And so really looking at that and saying, okay, what is that template that we come from?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it gets hard, because that means we have to dip back into the hard moments. And unfortunately, I think this is just like a way our human brain kind of operates, is we typically, when we're doing a self dive of looking at how we can better ourselves, right? Or what's working or what's not. Because our brains are really typically wired for survival, it's easy to just go find what didn't work, and like lean on that. And that's necessary. There's a time and space for that. But it also does help to look at what did work. And sometimes that's a little bit, you know, but it's a hard dive all around.
Yeah, I think as you were talking about that in terms of identity, I think, you know, looking at the man that I am, I can honestly say that, like, yeah, there was a lot of stuff that happened in my family that's just not cool. But I can honestly say that the other thing, that the work ethic, that was, both my parents worked very hard, did whatever they had to do for family. You know, and then, like, they made it a point that we were a house of God. They might not have, it was a messy walk, but at least I was a child who was instilled with, the ritual of going to church and being in Bible study. And I mean, there are tons of like people that didn't get that, right?
Mhm.
So like they don't have any of that, but at least in my I had that. So I had like the God was constantly placed in front of me and in my life, and I knew of God.
Mhm.
And to the point to where it was so much in my life that I got to make choices. And when I went off by myself, God was very much a part of my life. It might have
Mhm.
not looked good, but as you see where I came back as a prodigal, I
Mhm.
came back as, you know, like firm foundation in Christ. I have my mom and dad to thank for that,
Mhm.
of what they said, what their house was going to be, no matter how crazy and, messed up that it was. There's I can see like in the midst of a lot of the things that were just negative that hurt and the abuse and toxicity, God was also in a lot of other things. Um, so it's really looking at like the family thing. It does hurt, when I hear the word, but then to know that God blessed me for the loss and the grief of what I didn't have, so to speak. God has blessed me, wealthy man in relationship, and people who love me, and people that I call family. I mean, it's the families that just have taken me in and consider me one of their own, like
Mhm.
literally consider me one of their own. It's just been such a blessing in my life. So um, I think like blood is one side of it,
Mhm.
but I think there's a whole other side to family.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like people can get so stuck on blood to their
Mhm.
demise.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's okay to like step away.
Mhm.
Um, and like you were saying, seeking counsel, and it's I had to step away.
Mhm.
Like I said, like I left when I was 16. There was no counsel in that. That was literally me, like, you know, leaving. But definitely in the years to come, circled back around. But then it was just, I had to make a firm. I was like, hey, like, I can't, we can't talk anymore. This isn't a healthy place or a safe place for me.
Mhm.
And they honored that. And there wasn't like, I was upset and angry, but there was also prayer that, I prayed for my parents, because I desired a relationship. I didn't understand, and God healed that
Yeah.
within the both of them, more so with my dad, because it was just amazing the father that I got blessed with.
Mhm.
Um, that was already there, but God did work
Yeah.
in my prayers for my family. For my mom and my dad, and I know that he's still doing work. But just circling back around to what you were saying, like it's really okay to step away and get your footing and get your grounding to where you can walk back into that situation firmly in Christ, in identity, and knowing that it's okay. Like, hey, you don't get the chance to do this to me. I
Mhm.
respect you and I honor you as such and such in this, but you don't get the chance. You don't have to do that. Like, we can speak to each other. We can have respect for each other. We can. There's the there's I can't remember exactly where it is in the Bible where God specifically says, parents, don't antagonize your children.
Mhm.
Children, honor your mother and father. But he's going through all of these things saying, yes, do this, but hey, don't you do this. and hey, don't you do this, and don't you do, it's like,
Yeah.
this whole balance of a thing. It's not just kids honor your parents. Your parents can walk all over you and trample all over you and do whatever they want. No, it's like, hey, like, have respect.
Yeah.
You have respect. You have respect. So it's okay to like step away,
Yeah.
get yourself at a place of healing and growth, to be able to be able to speak like, okay, if there's not a give and take of respect, then I can hear what you need to say, love you, and
Yeah.
so that's a really good thing that you said about being able to step away. But here and again, you guys, there's some of you that may have like a really good family.
Yeah.
You have like, I know lots of people, and because you don't have that dynamic of tragedy in your family doesn't mean that God is not definitely in it and hasn't blessed it. Like, I love hearing
The
good,
peaceful.
yeah,
Like,
the good families,
yeah.
and the families that were able to work through adversity,
Yeah.
and healing and are growing together. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
I don't want to like, there is good stories of
Of
family,
course.
and healthy stories of family. I'm just speaking, about my
Yeah.
walk and journey with family that was hard with blood, but then blessed with my father and my mom, and then blessed outside of blood. So there's an amazing story in my ashes and the tragedy of my ashes. So, and you have an amazing story as well. So
Yeah, that's really good. And I think too, like, what I really kind of was hearing you say too is like there's a value in being able to have a time and a season where you step away, build your own foundation in Christ, with community,
yeah,
and that enabled you to be able to come back into an environment with your family and have new boundaries for yourself and have a voice that's different, and really value yourself in a new way.
yeah,
And so just because we step away doesn't mean that it is forever,
yeah,
but it gives space for God to do what God's going to do and for us to get a new perspective on life. And that's where there's that beauty of having that be a space that God can redeem and pull into a new sense of hope. I always, with our family, we really have gone through some doozy years of just a lot of different things. We ended up going into business together, like all of us, basically, like all of us, and have really had some times of having to learn how to do business with family, and have had a lot of fighting, right?
yeah.
But we've also had a lot of forgiving,
That's
a
good.
lot of it. And we've collectively said in our family that God's given us kind of that gift of reconciliation, and that's not an exclusive gift because it's the ministry of reconciliation that Jesus gives all of us.
Yeah,
Right? Is to be reconciled amongst each other through forgiveness. There are certain relationships in life which is very key to understand. There can be forgiveness, but not reconciliation, right?
yeah,
You can have forgiveness no matter what, but reconciliation takes responsibility and it takes safety, right? Both parties have to come together and be safe to have true reconciliation. So don't hear that word and think like, oh, I'm just supposed to go and make good if they're not, or if they're still abusive. Like, no, you can forgive, but don't have to reconcile. But in our case, that we would have years of, reconciling through things and working through things. And it's been really powerful to see that we keep coming back to that foundation. And I really do believe that we have been able to do that because we, as a family, were rooted in Christ through the years. And that's really what we keep coming back to individually, is coming back to Christ. And then when we come back to Christ individually, that brings us close together again. And so that's really what has been, I think, the big learning point for me, is that there had to be enough space, and there's even currently I'm in a season of just loving my family, but doing it at a little bit more distance.
Yeah.
I moved a couple hours outside of town,
Mm-hmm.
and am just doing my best to really like detach from just always having to filter my life and my decisions through how it's going to affect them, how it's going to affect the business, how it's going to affect what they think of what I'm doing. And just very honestly, sometimes that it feels very like I am a grown woman about to be 40 years old. Like I
Mm-hmm.
should not even have to think about this. Like get it together, brain. I can get real shameful on myself for struggling the way I do, but it's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna say love meets us where it's at, where we're at with Jesus, we have to meet ourselves where we're at with our process of healing and growing and developing.
Right.
And all of our stories are different, right? And so looking at that though, I really see that there's a gift in family because God
Yeah.
uses our family to teach and grow us and develop what he wants to develop in us. And I think when we look at that as family is a gift, but it's also a gift as a tool in the toolbox
Yeah.
of God to develop us and to grow us into more intimate relationship with him, then we're able to put family where it's appropriately needing to be. Because even Jesus says, you need to get to the point to where and this is a strong word, but he says like, you need to hate your mother, father, and brothers and sisters. Like not hate them in the sense of like, I hate you. But in that sense, if when you study it, it's a sense of to be able to leave and not to be able to follow God, right? Another episode we did was talking about following God's lead.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to follow God's lead in life, we've got to be willing to say, my God has to come before my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I can follow God in how I handle and deal with my family. And that's where we can stand on those strong principles, strong boundaries, love, true love, in a way that is productive and functional for the family unit.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where sometimes we do need to be able to have a little space. And that's needed if we are in a too tight-knit unit or if we are too dispersed to come back in a little bit more, unless there's abuse and trauma and stuff there that needs to be worked through. But if it's just kind of, I know I was talking to somebody, I can't remember who it was the other day, but they were saying like, yeah, our family, we just kind of, we all do our own thing and we don't ever really come together.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe we should kind of start doing more things together. So that proximity, I think is the key, right? Looking at the proximity and how close are we? How distant are we? How does that need to shift to be able to allow God's space
Mm-hmm.
or closeness to do what he can do with it, to develop us even further?
Right. I think that's really good. I think one of the things that you said that really gave me a revelation and actually chunked off some weight for me was when you were talking about forgiveness and reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
Because for my situation, I am fighting really hard to forgive members of my family, but they are not safe and there's no reconciliation there because they're not wanting to take responsibility.
Yeah.
And so making that differentiation for me was very helpful. And I just exhaled when you said that because I was like,
That's so good.
because now the pressure of forgiveness for me, it was very challenging because that's not a safe place for me. And they still are not safe now. They're very vicious and very still. And so, but now it's like I can breathe and say, hey, you know what? There's forgiveness there. And I need to move forward towards that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to, go into that space and be something that I just don't desire to be because it's not safe and there's no responsibility in the fact that, hey, let's reconcile. And so, and that's a big thing, I think, too, about family, about blood family. If there's no willingness to reconcile,
Yeah.
that's a that hurts people.
Yeah.
People carry that because I think within us we all desire family. I desire to tell stories, about my blood, like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're this and we're that, and it's I think we all desire that, and when there's hurt and abuse and toxicity there, and at the point where people don't want to take responsibility,
Yeah.
just want to shove it under the rug, just want to ignore it, just want to make you feel like you're crazy, just want to be in denial, and that can be a very challenging place for people, and a very hurtful place, especially if you feel like you have to be locked into that blood and you can't step away
Yeah.
and heal. Like, it's just very dangerous and just very destructive in quality of life.
Absolutely.
So you saying that just gives me, I'm able to exhale and I can move easier into forgiveness because I desire to forgive.
Yeah.
Because I know that, like, forgiveness is about me and not them.
Yeah.
It's about me releasing, the expectation and the debt for reconciliation, even, and honesty. And, and when I can release that, but that is maybe not weighing on them, it's weighing on me. It's a bondage for me. So
Good.
that was really good that you made that differentiation, and it very, yeah, that was like victory. That was a place of victory.
So good.
Family is so key and so important, but I think there's different levels of family. Like we were saying, there's blood, there's outside of blood, and then there's the kingdom. The main family, the kingdom of heaven, right?
Spiritual family, yeah.
Yeah, the spiritual family. And I think that you can move within all of those areas, and we do move, and it's healthy to move within all of those areas to be able to function in life. But it's very challenging because that blood family is like the main one that sets you up, train up a child in the way that they should go. And they're going to walk in it. Like, they're going to walk in that way, whether they're good, or bad. They're going to follow, good habits, healthy knowledge, wisdom, being susceptible and open to be taught. Rather than just having nothing and you're just surviving. And then when you lead on, that teaches you how to relate in society, but also that teaches you how to relate to Christ, to God.
Yeah.
If you come from brokenness and hurt and pain, it's going to make it very challenging to relate to a God that you have to have faith in, that you don't see, that you can't touch, that you can't.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
family is very, very, very important.
It really is. And I think that, like, even just like another layer to the forgiveness thing, I think just to kind of help, even further understanding that is my mom actually taught me this, and it was a really good kind of a word picture for forgiveness. Basically, if I took a hot coal from the fire, right? I took this hot burning coal from a fire and put it in your hand. That would burn you. It would hurt you, right? And so you're grasping this coal, and that's the wound, right? That's the offense. That's the hurt. Forgiveness. So unforgiveness, right? Avoidance. Oh, I don't even want to look at it. Like, I'm just going to avoid the pain. I'm going to just harbor it. It's holding on to that hot coal in your hands. And so unforgiveness continues to hurt you. And the pain travels up your arm as resentment. And it settles in your heart as bitterness. And so unforgiveness is about the pain that we're holding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So forgiveness is choosing to let go of that coal. And to choose forgiveness validates the wound.
Right.
It says, there is a coal in my hand that you have hurt me with. I'm going to let go of it so it no longer hurts me.
Yeah.
and the wound can begin to heal. The healing of the wound still hurts, right? So the pain is still there, but the continuation of the wounding isn't.
Right.
And that's the difference of when I choose to not forgive, I continue to wound myself because I'm holding on to this hot coal. But when I forgive, I let go of the wounding and allow the pain of the healing to start happening.
Yeah.
And it's a journey both ways, right? But really looking at that and saying, okay, forgiveness is, I love that you said forgiveness is about me, not about them.
Yeah.
You know, forgiveness is, reconciliation is about you both.
Right.
Right. And forgiveness, there's a beautiful result of forgiveness that is about them, that they get to benefit from, which can help them grow, which can potentially lead them to reconciliation. But that's not the motivation. The motivation is for you so that you no longer stay in a place of pain and woundedness, right? So that you can move toward not being stuck in a painful place. And you, not just you, but you in general, right?
Yeah.
You can move toward that place of really walking in your identity and who God has called you to be and what God has for you and what you want in life.
Right.
And not just being stuck wounded, holding on to a hot coal. Because as you guys know, like, I don't know, people act different when they're in pain, right? Like when I'm in pain, I have to focus on the pain and breathe through it.
Yeah.
People who are like, just think about something else. Think, look at, I'm like, shut up. Like, I know that hurts even worse. Like I have to focus on the pain to breathe through it. But when I'm in pain, that's all I'm focusing on.
Yeah.
And so that's the same with unforgiveness, is if I'm holding on to the pain of the wound because I'm still holding on to the woundedness and not forgiving and letting go and doing the healing work, that's all I'm focusing on. I'm
Right.
stuck. My focus is so limited. I can't focus on what else I want to achieve in life. So it is so massive, especially with family, to learn truly what forgiveness means and what it doesn't mean, so that we can walk in forgiveness in a way that clears up the space for us to move forward in the freedom that Christ has for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really, really good. And just to reiterate, like, there are families that have kind of like smooth sailing, right? I mean, they have issues, but there's just that solid foundation, that we celebrate that.
Yeah.
We definitely celebrate that. But we just have, like, that's what Love Speak Revolution is just Jenna and I sitting down, which we have done for several years, and just had these conversations about ourselves personally in Christ, meeting us where we're at, and just to see the work that the Trinity has done in our lives, and the healing and growth and blessing and all the subjects that we talk about. So especially for this, I know that I'm being honest, and it's real hardcore about my honesty, but just knowing that God has blessed me so much with the healing of family, and I continue to move towards that. But I just want to be honest with the things that, that challenge me and that I deal with and that do hurt and that do make me sad and frustrated, and what I don't understand, and areas that I'm still learning to trust God in, but to let you know that that God's love, Jesus, Holy Spirit is meeting me in this place. There's no shame and condemnation because I'm feeling this way, or it's messy and I'm not doing it exactly right, and it's taken me a minute to trust Trinity in these areas, and I'm choosing my own will in some spaces. And no, it's a journey, and God's got me, and He loves me, and His provision and all those things are for me, and He's walking with me and to growth. And it's amazing. And I think that's why we do this, so that we can share the reality and the truth of, hopefully, that both believer and non-believer can see, like, oh, there's something here. There's something real here. I want that, not because of a pulpit or some religious thing, but because man, this journey of life is insane
Mm-hmm.
and harsh. But I am so happy that I have the Trinity to help navigate me through it and give me all the tools that I need and every measure of balance and imbalance
Yeah,
of this thing. So
absolutely.
family is very important, but the family of the kingdom, the family of Trinity personally,
Yeah.
with you and Trinity, that family is very key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that like something that I really had to learn, and I'm still learning with my family, that trickled over into my understanding of my family, chosen family, friends, family, um, and even the spiritual family, sisters and brothers in Christ, and my relationship with God. Something that I had to really learn that was a hard lesson for me was um, really kind of that aspect of I can't just expect, like, I can't internalize it all as what I need from them, right? And that's a hard road to separate what my needs are and what I need from them as the answer to those needs. Um, because when we grow up, that's our source of like our family, that's our resource of well-being, our resource of understanding the world for a good however many years. And then we go off into the world in school and elementary, and then we are introduced to the peer world around us. And so a lot of that, a lot of that is where we're just really learning what our needs are and how to meet those needs and how to have those needs met. And so something that was a really big shift for me was understanding I can have my needs met outside of my family, right? I can meet my own needs in the terms of what God has ordained us to be able to do. I can meet those needs outside of my family. And because I grew up in an environment where it was so tight knit, whenever there was conflict, fear set in that at the only answer was my family.
Yeah.
Right. So anything outside of my family was like falling off a cliff emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn how to allow myself to reach outside of family into my friends and really build a true network of friends that I was vulnerable with. And that was the key. I had a ton of friends in high school and college. I mean, like, I was one that could bounce from group to group to group to group. I mean, I think 2 months into my college freshman year, I was like homecoming princess. Like, I just knew everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but nobody hardly knew me. And that was something I had to shift of like really being able to dive in vulnerably to my people so that the needs could be met, because my needs were still not being met by my friends because I wasn't being vulnerable to my friends, because I was so putting all my needs in the basket of my family, right? My mom and dad and my brother specifically. I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me. But the core three at that time were my mom and dad and my brother. And so finding that security in them was where it was good that they were there, but I put too much of it in them. And so whenever I then had to go off and be an adult and live in the world, and then my brother went off and had his own family, I felt very exposed and was just like, how do I get my needs met? Like, I'm supposed to do this thing on my own. Like,
Yeah.
what? And so, and then I don't have a friend network that really know me, on that deeper, vulnerable level. And so having to shift from that for me was really hard because I had to learn vulnerability.
Yeah.
And when I learned vulnerability outside of my family, walked through a bunch of junk that I walked through and have really learned how to be vulnerable with God and myself over the last 10 years is really where the repair work has happened in my family with me.
Right.
Because I've been able to go back in vulnerably with my family, but real and raw, but also in that way of having the distance from them emotionally, where I've been able to still stand my ground and say, this is this or that's that.
Right.
And not be so afraid of ruffling the feathers, right?
Yeah.
So kind of my point in that, just sharing vulnerably, is that our family and our friends, what we put into them as their responsibility to meet in us is really important to look at.
Yeah.
Because we oftentimes give our family God-sized responsibility.
Truth.
And I think that's what really causes a lot of hurt when they don't meet those unrealistic expectations for our soul. And we just keep beating our head up against that wall, trying to get those needs met by them.
Right. I think like that's so good. For me, I had desires, but I didn't even know what they look like.
Yeah.
Cause like there was just I had no real like connection. And I think maybe the disconnect definitely like, you know, the abuse and the trauma from that was consistently going on. And then you had a mother and father who were just so wrapped up in themselves and survival and trying to provide for, 3 boys and just in the thick of it, trying to do the best they can. When I got out, I was like literally numb. And I never, I was alone, but not, because there was always like, God always sent like a family to me. And so a lot of the qualities that I learned, I did learn from like at the time when there was a massive rift with my dad and we just didn't talk. Like I said his name before, Tom Yarborough. He was my soccer coach for many years, but he was a father figure and he taught me so much. But at the time with my dad, it was real militant. Because he didn't really know how to, because his father was not really was not affectionate to him at all. So my dad really, he knew how to be affectionate, but it just kind of like wasn't, God had to pull that out. So in that aspect, a lot of times I didn't know, I know what I desired. I desired to be seen by my family and to be acknowledged and to be told positive things. But I was also in effect that like I didn't need like anything from them, because I never really felt like I got anything outside of like shelter, food, and clothing. And I was just like, okay. So there was a lot of healing that I had to do, but in a sense for me, God brought those families to me that stepped in, and that was like the span of my life. For the rest of my life, family stepped in, but definitely blessing it like with my dad. But I've seen like, because of what I've went through, I know I have a heavy story and we haven't even gone into, that's like the tip of the iceberg, but because of it, I recognize the importance of God in my life, Trinity in my life. On one of the episodes we're talking about God, following God's lead.
Yeah.
I see the importance of that. I see the importance of family. I see the importance of community. I see the importance of mentorship and accountability. And I see the importance of like the principles of God, and what He expects from us. But I see relationship in that because I was a prime example of I can't give you what you want if I don't trust you. That's just my life. That's just how I am. And I have a big heart and a giving heart, but so, that is the positive side. I never want to sound like a victim and woe is me. I just want to be honest with people to where like I have an understanding of a lot of things and some wisdom just because I made a lot of mistakes and my life has been very hard. But by the blessing and mercy of Christ, God took that way where there was no way and made a way to His glory, used everything. So it's all been about family for me.
Yeah.
In every sense, whether it was kingdom family, right?
Yeah.
The angelic, the spiritual. Then there was outside of blood family that poured into me, definitely as a child too. But then the blood family, like it was very toxic, but there were still some positive. I can't look at my family and say there was nothing positive that didn't come out of it. Right. So family is very key and very important on all levels. But we just want to make sure, again, in our root system, that Christ is in the root system.
Yeah.
'Cause we can't navigate the brokenness or the whatever of family or life or whatever without Christ. So this was a good one. Well, they're all good, I feel like.
Yeah,
but this was really important.
Yeah, I think that like just like as a real quick thought, I think what you said was really powerful. I want to hit on. You said I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to come across as a victim. And I think that it's so because so many people are afraid of looking the victim that they're not honest with themselves and they're not allowing themselves to go there and talk about the hard things that have happened to them from their family or from their upbringing or just even in adults or friends or whoever. But the differentiation is you can be a victim to things that were hurtful to you, but not carry a victim mindset, right? Like you are outside of that victimization that you had as a little boy, right? And I'm outside of the victimization that I had as a little girl. The victim mindset says I'm stuck under the power of the pain, with the belief system that says I'm powerless underneath the weight of it. So I'm going to just go with the current, right? That's the victim mindset.
Yeah.
When we are healing and actively pursuing healing, which I know you and I both know we both do that, right? Like you are actively pursuing healing. I'm actively pursuing healing.
Yeah.
And that's the difference to where you can talk about the hard stuff of your childhood and your family. I can talk about the hard stuff of mine. But the victim mindset is not present because we are seeing God's provision. We are seeing the blessings that come from those things. We are seeing redeemed relationships like with your dad and your aunts and those type of things, and redeemed relationships within my family, just on different angles. And we're seeing so much of the reconciliation that happens when it's appropriate. Like those things don't happen when you're stuck in mindset of victim.
Yeah.
Right. But we can be, and it's important to find safe spaces to talk about the things that we were victim to so that we can let them heal.
Yeah.
And we can let God into those spaces to heal. And we can let people who are safe in to help us heal. But the victim mind says, I'm powerless under the weight of it, so I might as well just keep running from it.
Yeah.
Right? Or avoiding it, or numbing out from it, or just reacting to it and justifying my behavior because of it. Like that stuff is victim mindset. And that's what's detrimental to relationship.
Yeah.
And so, we can talk about the things that we were victim to.
Yeah.
And know that we're not stuck in victim mindset here.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, we're going to tie it up, family.
Yeah.
We always hope that you get some nuggets from our conversations and that it blesses you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And definitely make sure like, share, follow, subscribe, all the things. But we really want to just grow our family.
Yeah. We want to grow our family.
Grow our family. And you guys are, following along with us and your family. And we want to hear from you. So leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you.
I am Sharif Iman.
I'm Jenna Barbosa.
And this is Love Speak Revolution.
Love meets you where you're at.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.